October 8th might be one of the most consequential days for how we speak online, and it's not in the way you might think. Why, you might ask? Because the CEOs of Discord, Twitch, Reddit, and Steam are all being summoned before Congress to answer something vague, urgent, and terrifying: the radicalization of online users. And they're not just testifying about the extremists, they're being asked to explain the architecture of the speech itself. Who gets to speak freely, what counts as dangerous, and who ends up being silenced. If you post memes, moderate servers, argue politics, or even lurk quietly, this hearing could affect you too. Let's break down what's really going on, what it might mean for your online life, and how far the ripples could go. On September 17th, 2025, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer officially invited the four tech CEOs to testify in a full committee hearing on October 8th. The hearing, according to the invitation letters, is intended to examine the radicalization of online forum users, including instances of open incitement to commit politically motivated acts. This move followed the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, which Comer and others said underscores the urgency of investigating whether online platforms enable violent ideologies. The list of invitees includes Humam Sakini, the CEO of Discord, Gabe Newell, the president of Valve or Steam, Dan Clancy, the CEO of Twitch, and Steve Huffman, the CEO of Reddit. Comer's framing is simple: radical actors allegedly using these platforms. Congress needs security, transparency, and accountability. But as with all congressional theater, the subtext is where the stakes live. To understand how unique, or not, this is, we need to take a look back. Congress has held interrogations of social platforms many times. Facebook in the Cambridge Analytica era, Twitter over disinformation, and YouTube over the algorithmic radicalization. Every few years, Washington rediscovers that the internet exists and cycles through the same playbook: admonishments, press releases, vague promises of regulation. But here's something different this time. The invite is not just about misinformation, but radicalization, an even stronger accusation. Radical ideas leading to real-world harm. And the hearing explicitly mentions politically motivated acts.
Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be fucking showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them. You need to be shanking these motherfuckers and letting their intestines just ride on stage.
Also worth noting, just days before, lawmakers from the House Homeland Security Subcommittee sent those letters to the same platforms demanding internal documents about extremist content, threat detection, and cooperation with law enforcement. So it's not just a single hearing, it's part of a broader campaign. What looks like pushing platforms into the corner where companies or liability aren't optional. Before we talk implications, let's remind ourselves radicalization isn't magical, it's a process. In platforms with recommendation systems, content amplification, echo chambers, and modular communities, opinion drift happens. People start in moderate places and get nudged towards extreme content, a concept often labeled the alt-right pipeline or the rabbit hole. There's recent research showing that users who engage with conspiracy or extremist communities often display distinct linguistic patterns before joining these communities. In other words, it's not always the platforms creating radical users. Sometimes users bring predispositions that platforms then magnify. This matters because when Congress talks about platform responsibility, they're often ignoring users' pre-existing tendencies, blaming the stage instead of the performer. Platforms already use moderation tools, AI filters, content rules, shadow banning, and moderation teams. The argument before Congress will almost certainly be, we already do this. The question is, will it be enough to appease lawmakers who may want more control? This hearing is, at its core, a story about between government, platforms, and users. It represents a test of liability. If Congress signals that platforms can be held accountable, future lawsuits or regulations may hang on that precedent. A push for regulation under the guise of safety. We'll only ask for dangerous content is a nice phrase until it becomes, we decide what's dangerous. Narrative framing power. If lawmakers get to define radicalization publicly, they control the language. Then moderation becomes political, not technical. platform fatigue and compliance pressure. Even if the CEOs resist, the public push, donor pressure, and congressional threat will push platforms to preemptively overcompensate. So while the hearing is positioned as oversight, it's also a moment to shift the battleground of speech from public discourse into legal territory. All right, now let's pull this down from Capitol Hill to your Discord, your subreddit, your stream chat. Unpredictable moderation. What's okay today might be banned tomorrow. Policies could suddenly change to accommodate whatever Congress defines as radical content. Shadow bans and suppression. You might get deprioritized or muted quietly without explanation, and fighting that will require legal or platform appeals beyond your control. Server level pressure. If you moderate a Discord server or subreddit, expect pressure to self-police hard. Admins might be held to new standards implicitly. Content homogenization. Expect safer, more sanitized content to dominate. Edgy takes, satirical takes, even ambiguous or ironic content might be pushed to the margins. Chilling effects. When people fear being labeled as radical, they self-censor. Conversations that edge toward controversy might die before they even begin. Gatekeeping by platforms. Platforms might adopt stricter verification, content barriers, review processes, making new creators or dissenting voices pay a heavier price. If you use these platforms, whether casually or professionally, the argument here is simple. The battlefield Congress is entering is your speech. Still not convinced? Let's run through 3 potential scenarios and see why this matters. Scenario 1, a theater with no changes. All the CEOs show up, they read prepared statements, they dodge loaded questions, the media runs headlines about accountability, and tomorrow, well, nothing changes. Why? Because change is hard, lobbying is strong, platform costs are high. Scenario 2, platform appeasement. To avoid legal risk or congressional ire, platforms announce stricter policies, AI labeling systems, and content audit. They'll say, we want to be safe, but they might overreach. And most moderation happens invisibly. You'll see content shifts, removals, enforcement that appears inconsistent. In this world, the platform becomes a safety net and the censor. Or scenario 3, the legislative fallout. Congress introduces bills that codify platform liability or require oversight boards or mandate transparency regimes. Maybe platforms become legally responsible for algorithmic amplification. Suddenly, you have federal oversight over speech platforms. At this point, the internet becomes an arm of regulatory structure, not just free space. In each scenario, power shifts. The weaker voices, in this case the small streamers, community servers, and direct speech, feel that change first. This isn't just about radicalization or platform failure, it's about the future of public discourse in a digital world. If Congress wins the narrative that platforms must censor to protect, then speech becomes a managed commodity. This hearing is a scaffolding for what may come next, a system where free speech is conditionally protected, not inherent. If you believe in arguing or stupidity or memes or stepping over lines, then make no mistake, that becomes harder when the definition of objectionable content is decided behind closed doors in DC. October 8th is not just a hearing, it's a hinge. When the gavel falls, we might find ourselves in a new era of digital speech, for better or for worse. So mark your calendar, watch the hearing, because when the questions fly, I'll be watching too. The statements, the lies, the pivots, the threats. And when the dust settles, we'll revisit this moment and see what exactly changed and for whom. So if you want to see behind the curtain of what happens after the hearing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because when speech is on trial, we all have skin in the game.